Good morning. So today we're continuing with the spiritual adulting. This is what's happening. We have already created the infrastructure of absolutely everything that is going to happen to us for the rest of our life. It's done. At this point, you can change none of what you've already built your life upon, your origin story, that thought at moment of conception. Your snow globe has cracked. You've already identified what values you want to dethrone from your parents. You've already determined your spiritual sort of path and growth at 12 and then again at 24. You've identified your values around money and sex and image and beauty. You've already done it. Now we're at tier 2. So I wanted to kind of give you this drawing, which is the inverted triangle is again thought. And remember, feminine, earth and water, the feminine polarity, everything on earth. So we're here, we've identified all of everything before 28. Today we're going to do actually 3 stages. Today we're starting this, which is 28 to 42, and then the circle is going to be 42 to 84. So this is the years of thought, where we're thinking about our values, we're thinking about our infrastructure, we're thinking about what we want to dethrone in our parents, we're thinking about what we want to do in the world, money, sex, image, beauty, spiritual philosophy, whatever that is. That thought has already been in place. Today starts the square, and you know from the truth is in the 7 gates, the triangle is a child, the adult is the square. We're now in the earthly realm, putting limits and boundaries. This is where we castrate ourselves, and I'll go into that in a minute. And then at 42, all the way to 84, is when we blow all of it up and we work on spirit. So on Thursday, we're going to talk a lot about 42 because that's going to build the spiritual foundation for the spiritual adult, which is up here. Today are 3 major cycles that make you a quote-unquote adult, what Erickson would call adulthood, which is this idea of generativity versus stagnation. So now we're entering into what most of you would consider yourselves adult. Just regular human adult people, not spiritual adults. And that doesn't start until 42, when we blow all of it up because we realize that we found it on a thought that is erroneous, a structure and a body and an image and rules and regulations that are erroneous. And then the circle represents the spirit. Okay, so this is how the spiritual adult is birthed, so to speak. Yes?
Is it something that's like an aha moment, or is it something you have to build up to the spiritual adult?
So some people never get there. Okay, some people never even do this level of self-analysis. But if you're going to get there, and that's really a great question, part of it is an aha, but what happens is the spiritual adult is ruled by Chiron and Black Moon. Today we're talking about Saturn and Uranus. This cycle that's at the adult, the physical, normal, a societal adult, starts at 28, which is what we're going to start with. At 42, Uranus comes in and blows all of this structure up and starts the spiritual adulting process. What can happen is we blow up our life, we have a midlife crisis, an existential crisis. Neptune can be some sort of addiction or some sort of aha spiritual moment. Pluto can be some death. Chiron can be some illness. It's usually that we create some big thing in our life, some level of grief, some existential crisis, a pandemic, in order to even get to the final piece of spiritual adulting, which is Lilith and the removal of that last veil. But it is a process that starts at 42 that most people come to me around that time are like, oh, I want to find a way to be intuitive, develop my intuitive gifts. Start seeking. It goes back to those cracking Athena's head open, the helmet open, so she could be birthed. This is when we have imagination, intuition, and curiosity. So when that starts, it doesn't mean that at 42 you're a spiritual adult. That's when it starts. So this is the precursor, which is just the adult, to the spiritual adult that starts at 42, which is what we're going to talk about on Thursday. Great question. Any questions about that? Okay. So here is a little diagram. This is 0, moment of conception. You have your thought. You're born on your thought, your origin story. At 7, you have your cracking your snow globe. At 14, you have your first Valor Year, which is when you're trying to pull away from your parents and say, I'm going to do it, and you go, I'm going to dethrone them. At 12, you identified you could dethrone them. At 14, you're like, I'm going to do something in drugs and alcohol, sex, whatever it is that you identify. At 21, we talked about last time, you have your first neutralizer year. You're now, quote unquote, adult, out of the house, living your life. Someone or something comes in to say, hey, stop this 0 to 100. This is 0, this is 100. And start to balance it. You don't, you ignore it. You probably think that they're crazy. They dumped you, they stole your car, they fired you. What are you going to listen to? It's not until you get later on in life that you start realizing the threat. Now we're at 28. We are right back at our moment of conception. And what happened at the moment of conception? We left the universal consciousness and we were castrated in a body, right? This God person, this what is it that I say that the genie says in Aladdin? Phenomenal cosmic powers. You were the universe, was now in an itty bitty living space forced into this body. At that time, it was the womb. You got your body. At 28, you castrate yourself. You do what your parents did or what your soul chose to do at 0. Now you do it to yourself. You get a mortgage. You take on a kid. You get a professional job. You buy yourself a fancy car you can't afford. You castrate yourself. You go back here to do it all over again. And you call it adulting. As in the adult world, you need to have some sort of responsibility, right? Hold on. And this is what happens. So it's the equivalent of the body you were given, but you already have a body. So now what are you going to do? You're going to layer another layer of responsibility. You already got the body. So now you're going to get the mortgage, the kid, the car, the job, whatever it is. So this is when you castrate yourself. You castrate yourself on the same exact thought that you were born on, that your parents had at the moment of conception, on the same value you tried to dethrone them at 14. We are programmed, people. I had a client this morning, 72 years old, her fourth 18. Now at 72, she's finally going to do the one forbidden thing. This is the pattern. And if we don't know it, we're going to do it and do it and do it and create the traffic jam in the system with our kids, etc. We're never going to heal these traumas, or at least have awareness around them, okay? So do you see you went full circle? I want to just note that this is the cycle of the moon. New moon, waxing moon, full moon, waning moon, balsamic moon, next day new moon again. The moon is symbolic, and you know that the moon is a trick. Those of you who took my moon class, the moon gives us the perception, the veil, the matrix in which we're going to live in this entire life. It's not an accident that this cycle, and again and again and again, is viewed through our parents' eyes. And we do and honor them. If we don't dethrone the moon sign in our chart, we can't ever become the sun. The light of moon has no light of its own. We're in a vicious cycle with our psyche and our parents. They run the show. The woman this morning, 72 years old, her parents have been dead for years and they still run the show. Let them rest, people. They don't care. They're off doing spirit things. They don't care what you're doing. Nonsense. Absolute nonsense. But they live here. So that's the importance of this cycle, and we're going to do this over and over and over and over again. But that's why the moon is so appealing to people. And oh my God, the new moon and the full moon, and tomorrow's a full moon. Look at what you did 14 days ago. What you started 14 days ago comes to bite you in the butt tomorrow. The same thing 14 years and 28 years and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. This is the cycle of nature, and the law today is the law of rhythm. Everything has a rhythm. The seasons, biology, developmental stages. This is the rhythm. And again, I repeat, it's circular. There is no hierarchy. You are a child of no one. You are a child of the universe. It is circular. But parents told you that they were your hierarchy, which obviously there was a hierarchy, or there should have been a hierarchy in your childhood just for the purpose of the earth. And you now put yourself on a hierarchy by becoming a parent, becoming the boss, or owning the car, and you keep this nonsense of the hierarchy up. Yes, you need to live in the earthly realm, and you need to be an adult and have this hierarchy. Granted, that's why it's the symbol of the square. The square, remember, is a number 4. The number 4 is crisis, construction, death, and everything you create with a square must die. And if you remember my favorite symbol, the squared circle, you created this square, the earth, the world you created that you're living in based on a thought from the moment of conception, when you were castrated and got kicked out of the universal consciousness. But the universal consciousness lives in you, and it's at 42 to 84 that spiritually you could start adulting and get back to that. Can you speed it up? I think you can. I think we're in age of Aquarius. I think the universe is sort of supporting that, but we have to understand what we're speeding up. Because if you keep doing the same thing at the same programmed ages, this does not mean running away, escapism, and dissociating from your body and running into an ashram. That is not what spiritual adulting is. You still need to honor the body. You still need to castrate yourself in some way, but you could do it now mindful. You can now do it with an intention, so that when you get to the age of 40 to 84, there's less to destroy. There's less to deconstruct. So hopefully you guys are at the perfect age so that you can make these choices wisely. Yes?
So is this similar to the East meets West?
Yes, exactly. This is East meets West. East always meets West. And it was funny because I was writing something in the new book about this. And we talked about image and beauty and gluttony and sex and money and everything at age 24, right? The East doesn't have a problem with sex. If you go to India, you're going to see lingam temples all over the place that are like literally erect penises. In the Eastern philosophy, they don't have the purity symbol of the Mother Mary like we do. The divine god and goddess, Shiva Shakti, totally part of their spiritual infrastructure. Tantra, Eastern philosophy, I can't remember the name, but there's this Netflix special that's like Sex Around the World. It's a really great program. And not so much the Western world, but when you look at the Eastern philosophies, I think they do China. I don't remember if they do India. Some of the Eastern countries, they have texts, ancient texts with positions, the Kama Sutra. This isn't a castration that the Indian philosophy has or the Eastern philosophies. They have materialism, the second chakra, not with the erotic and the sexual. That's a Western philosophy problem. So we not only do we have this whole puritanical Mother Mary energy that we have to be such virginal and such gracious hostesses, we also have the term privilege. I've been working with clients a lot lately No more use of the word privilege. If you believe in karma, if you believe in cause and effects, then you know that there is divine retribution. This does not mean that you don't donate money and feel bad for someone who's impoverished. No, of course. Agape love, fourth chakra, have empathy, donate. Bad things happen to people, and of course. But stop calling yourself privileged when simply you were born into the divine justice based on your karmic actions, and that in itself is going to carry a weight. Just because you have wealth, I know a very dear friend who committed suicide because he was a trust fund baby. I know a lot of wealthy people that have a lot of struggle. So it's not the assumption that because I'm wealthy, I'm better karmically. No, that's just the baggage you chose in this one. But now we've turned it privilege, privilege, privilege. So I'm trying to get my clients to move away from privilege and just own that they're wealthy so that they stop with the sabotage and doing these nonsensical behaviors. So now in the Western world, we have to deny our wealth, even though that's what our myth is based on with Athena, our materiality, which is exactly who we are supposed to be, balancing it, of course, with the spirit. And on top of that, we were slapped on a virgin in our psyches. And then we also beat ourselves up with our impure thoughts of sex and stuff. The Eastern philosophy is actually a little better if you think about it. Because they're like, okay, we're broke, but hell, we're okay with sex. So we're always going to see this. It's a mirror. Neither one is better or worse. And you cannot negate your roots. When I got cancer the first time, the first thing I heard from my guides was pull it out by the roots. That's when this theory was born. You gotta go to the original thought. You gotta go to the root. And that's just you as a human being. Go to the roots of your country. Go to the roots of your philosophies. That's why I bring in the Greek philosophy and the philosophy of prophecy and hubris and all that. Because that's what we're holding ourselves to, those values. Your parents had those values. They maybe only lived one or two, and then that's the one that you've constructed your life around. But that's what it is. Great question. So now we're at 28. So this is your turn to castrate yourself. You take on a responsibility because that's what's in your programming. That's the next thing to come. You couldn't neutralize the swings at 21. Your boss fired you, your girlfriend dumped you, your dog died, you got into a car accident, whatever. That didn't help. You blamed the world. You said, oh, life sucks, a Kate, remember the goddess of trickery and deceit, and you moved on with your life. And now you're back at the beginning, at the origin story. And guess what you're going to do to castrate yourself? The exact same as your parents over here, or the exact opposite. That's it. Those are your choices. Your parents got a mortgage at 28, you get a mortgage at 28. Or you become homeless. Or you're the eternal renter. Some version. It'd be great if you have access to your parents to ask them these stories because it would really inform you. It's really super informative, but it doesn't matter. Your life is proof of what the thought is, and that's fine. Okay? So you castrate yourself. Astrologically, we have something called 28 to 30 is what's called the Saturn return. Saturn, remember, what did he do? He dethroned his father. Okay? Saturn castrated actually Uranus, a form of dethroning. Jupiter has the word dethrone, but it's the same thing. And what happened? Saturn was a Titan. And Uranus, the father sky, the universe, would have all these children. He would make Mother Earth, Gaia, pop out babies, all the, and he would shove them into her. He would shove them into the earth. He wanted to keep having babies, but he didn't want any responsibility for them. He would just shove them into the earth. And Saturn was trying to avenge his mother and say, Guy, stop doing that to my mom. She can't carry any more of your babies. And the irony here is that what does Jupiter do? Jupiter does the exact same thing to Saturn. Jupiter says, vomit all my brothers and sisters that you swallowed. So he did exactly what he said. He was criticizing his father. What you don't like about your parent is exactly what you do. It's in the myth. You can't get away from it. You are your mother and your father. Look at your buckets. What you don't like about them is what you are. And Jupiter avenged Uranus, Saturn was trying to avenge Mother Earth. So part of what this cycle is to honor mom and dad. Avenging mom. It could be mom or dad. Don't take that part so literally, but it's not an accident. It's the moon, and the moon is the mother, the toxic water, the womb. The perception of everything you see in the world is sucking your looking for mommy. I had a guy email me, well, how can my wife love me better? And astrologically, you look at Venus. Then I looked at his moon, and I said, well, is she this, this, and I described the moon sign. Because if she's this, and this, I don't remember the sign, you're looking for mom, and you've created that because you want her to be your mother. So do you want her to love you as a partner, or do you want her to love you as a mommy? And we need to be honest with ourselves of what we're looking at. So this, in part, this return home, the job, the kid, the mortgage, is to avenge mom. So we castrate ourselves, we avenge mom, like Saturn did to his mom, and then we say, oh, we're so different from our parents because we did the opposite, or oh, look at this. I got the same illness, I got the same house, I got the same career. At the earthly realm, it's great. At the earthly realm, you have a family full of doctors. To the image of the world, it all looks good, but we know that there's a spiritual state of consciousness, not just the ordinary world of consciousness. So what your eyes show you is great about somebody, and oh, look at that, a whole family of doctors. The spiritual consciousness says something ain't right there. You may not know why, you don't know why you judge it. Look at yourself, and that'll give you all the information you need. So this is what happens at 28 to 30. I have to bring in the triple goddess again. Remember this symbol? Maiden, mother, crone. And I told you this is 0 to 14, this is 14 to 52, and this is beyond 52. And this is simply because between 48 to 52, we get our return home, grief, illness, some crisis, in an attempt to become a spiritual adult. So to answer your question, Yvette, it could be an aha. It's usually triggered by that. A lot of people get depression and grief and sick, and they never look at themselves. So they just stay right here. This is where we're at right now, the adulting. And this is important because remember, Saturn castrated Uranus. We castrate ourselves because we don't want to be free. This is the whole deaky that people have. I want my space. I want a polyamorous relationship. I want to have money because it's going to liberate me in freedom, and it's nonsense. This is freedom that occurs in your thoughts that at 42, you begin that process. But the castration is that you give yourself an earthly responsibility, but really what you did was you castrated yourself just like your parents castrated you. You castrated your thoughts. Liberty comes from thoughts. It does not come from any responsibility. And I love Viktor Frankl for that purpose. Because how a man in a concentration camp understood that he could liberate himself and be a spiritual adult despite his earthly conditions. So I have a really big problem when people write, especially in the New Age. This is a really big pet peeve of mine. When people in the New Age literature are like, oh, when you shift your vibration, you need to leave your job and your husband. And no. There's two states of consciousness. Your ordinary reality, where you're in your marriage, where you're with your kids, where you pay your bills, and you do your earthly duties. Because you're in a body, people. Your spiritual state of consciousness allows you to understand that you created that based on these loyalties to your parents. But despite your earthly conditions, aka concentration camp, what you view as a concentration camp, your version of it where you were castrated, you can rise above it, live with a different perception, a different reality, understand why you created it, and you could be at peace and stability with that. That's what Jesus was mirroring. That's what Buddha was mirroring. That's what Viktor Frankl mirrors. So when New Age people say, oh, you're shifted vibration, and now you have to get divorced, and now you have to blow up your life, nonsense. Does it happen sometimes? Of course. I wanted to renegotiate my last marriage. He didn't. He has a right. But don't go into any sort of self-awareness and self-analysis assuming that that's a byproduct of shifting into a spiritual adult, because it's not. You might want it to be, and that might be your excuse. So I always say I'm pro-marriage. I have couples, and I say that. I am pro-marriage. I will help you have an understanding that you can work this out and live with each other despite what you've created based on your unmet needs and your threat and your parents' buckets and everything. But there's a chance for renegotiation based on the newfound self-awareness, on the new inner work. But if you want to blow up your life because you want to get divorced because you're sick of that person, you're first going to own that before I help you blow up your life. Because you have to have some ownership around that. And I think that this whole idea of vibration and attraction and manifestation and all these post-it note words are ways to get off the hook for the responsibility that you, knowingly or unknowingly, you're held to the law. You have a 30-year mortgage, you got to pay it. And if you got a kid, you're responsible for that kid. I had a client the other day. She didn't know. I broke down the story for her and why she had these kids. She had kids much later on in life. And she's like, I don't want to be a mother. I don't like being a mother, but I want to do the right thing. So when she understood the story, she was like, okay, I can see that I created that, no problem. I said, okay, spiritual law, you're responsible to them until they're 14. They're only 8. You've got 6 years. Earthly law, which I don't get too into, obviously the law dictates that, tells you 18. That doesn't mean you have to buy them a car, pay for college or anything, but till 18, you give them room and board or whatever you think the legal, precedent is. Spiritually, which is my domain, till 14, you do your inner work because they don't need to carry your baggage. And she understood it. She's like, okay, 6 years, I got this. That's what the law dictates. I own my responsibility. I castrated myself to honor a childhood story of my parents. Sign me up. That's it. You don't need to blow up your life. You don't need to get sick. You don't need the disaster. Hell, I did all of that so that hopefully nobody that sees me as a client does that. If you need to, fine. But at least do it with awareness. Understand why you're getting divorced, why you're doing that, why you're losing all your money, why you're letting your house get foreclosed. Own the story of it. Don't be blind in life, just la, 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 everything's happening to me, victim. And this is an important concept, and I think that this speaks to what you said, Yvette, about the spiritual adult. I tell you at 42, and we're going to talk about this Thursday, that the spiritual adult starts to emerge. We decide how big of the fruit we want in the tree, right? Right after Uranus is Neptune. And there are people that go into a major crisis, which they become victim. And the low vibration of Neptune, here I have innocent, is victim. And sometimes you just have to understand and feel victimized by the world. There is a space for that. You own that and you grieve that your story sucked. I had to do that. So there is a space for the spiritual adult to own that they didn't like what they were dealt with. They have to own that it's divine retribution, karmic law, and that they did it. But you're allowed to mourn your earthly story and that it sucks and that your snowball cracked and whatever the thing was. There's a space for that in the spiritual adult. This isn't positive vibes only. Oh, I own everything. I created everything. And I'm so above owning that it sucks. No. So once you start to think you're liberating yourself, you might go into a depression or a grief, and then you might have a death or a dark night of the soul, which is Pluto, an illness. Hopefully you don't create it, but you might before you fully remove the veil. That's the spiritual adulting piece. The thing is, people create this stuff in their life, the victim, the grief, the dark night of the soul, the divorce, the loss of a child, and then they never get to hear because they stunt their growth. They don't do that last step. But there is a place for all of that to happen. But no one's sort of been explained that this is why we're creating this. And there is a very much a need to grieve what your life was. And I told you that I had to grieve that snow globe. I had to grieve the belief that I even had a snow globe, you know, when I saw it shattered all over the floors, when I said, oh, this is a snow globe of delusion. That's the moon. That's this cycle that we're holding ourselves to because our parents told us this is the only way to do it. And we never get to the hidden thing. And when we do, we hold ourselves hostage to that. We'll get to that in a second. So this is the earthly realm of adulting, what Erickson calls generativity versus stagnation. Notice the words, generativity. You must generate. You must pump something out. It's the masculine energy again, all the way down here. You must pump out books, Mercury, lectures, Mercury, money, Mars. You're back to teenager. So you're supposed to be an adult, but the low vibration is pump out, because if not, you're stagnant. If not, you're the adult that's depressed at home in the covers and your parents are like, oh my God, my child never grew up. Guess who he or she is mirroring? So that's the earthly adulting happens at this age. Most people stay here with a 0 to 100 of liberty and freedom. That's why we go on vacation. That's why we cheat. That's why we buy the car. That's why we buy the boat. That's where most people stay, at the physical adult space, and they die there. That's what we're programmed to do. That's what our parents did. That's it. That's part of the Western world. In the Eastern philosophy, they're allowed per se. It's not that it's not written in the Western literature, because it is, but it's blatantly in the Vedas. At 60, you renunciate and you go to the ashram. Here, they send you to a nursing home, and who the hell wants that? That's supposed to be our respite. I mean, we haven't been really given these great options to say, hey, I want to do my inner work, if nursing home is my option. So we stay here, and we never get to the spiritual adult. And just so you know, in the old world, pre-Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, and Black Moon being discovered, the astrology stopped here. That was it. Saturn. That's what we knew. Those were the planets. The days of the week are the 7. That was it. That's what we thought. That's where we died. And now we know. Now we have. There was always in the metaphysical literature the fixed stars and like the 8th and 9th layers, and you can Google and you can see pictures of that. So the mystics knew that even though there weren't planets assigned. But now we have these planets, we have these archetypes, we have clear information that this is the path to adulthood, to spiritual adulthood. Of course, those are my terms, but it's the same thing. Any questions on what happens 28 to 30? Let me bring you back to the triple goddess. What happens is at 0 to 14, we're getting our thoughts, we're getting our origin story, we're trying to dethrone the parents at the values. Okay, we're still children, obviously we can't do anything. But then from 14 to 52, let's just call this 28, which is midpoint, we bring in a spouse, a child, a mortgage, a bill, a profession, some adulting responsibility, whatever that is for whatever you are, whoever you are, wherever you live. This is the most wasted time. This is wasted years because we're raising our children. We're catering to our boss, our spouse, our guardian, whatever it is. We're in the world as an adult and we have no mind for our spirit. What I invite clients to do is do the shadow work. What is it you don't like about your children? This is what I write, Dethroning Olympus. What is it that you don't like about your spouse? That's why I wrote truth is in the triangle. If nothing else, don't waste your entire full moon adult years. Because the crisis you're going to have when you start this adulting, spiritual adulting process is going to be huge. Because you did nothing here. At least engage and encourage yourself to say, oh, I created that. Why did I think that? What don't I like about that person? Oh, I have that. At least do something. Remove some veils so that all the work isn't when you're older, when you're sicker, when you don't feel good, when you're exhausted. I have this client I work with every week, sometimes 2-3 times a week. She's like, this is so hard. It's the end of my life. I'm retired. I said, yeah, but you spent your life building your entire foundation on falseness. You never removed one veil. Then now you're being fast-tracked. So by the time you die, you actually did what your soul came to do. So let's not waste all these years by pretending it's our child, the identified patient, pretending that it's our partner and he's a thief and he did this and he cheated. It's nonsense. At least take some responsibility for that mistress. At least take some responsibility for the unintegrated shadow you're seeing in your child. Something. So that when you do get to 52 and beyond, when that starts at 42, that we'll talk about Thursday, it isn't so explosive. Don't castrate yourself so much that you build yourself in a concentration camp or in a prison. That's why people cheat. That's why people show up for jobs and blow up places. They've built a prison in their thoughts. They've castrated themselves so much. They never said no. They never set a limit. They never set a boundary. Of course you explode. So if you could use those years that are so crucial, that start technically at 14 because that's when you try, but really as an adult at 28, you use your spouse, your boss, your colleagues, your children as mirrors and you do just a little bit of the work. Then 42 to 84 doesn't have to be such a big deal. Does that make sense? So that's important to bring here. Now, 28 to 30 is a Valor year. Remember, there's V years and there's N years. Neutralizer years start to move the swing of 0 to 100. Valor years are multiples of 14. So 14, 28. Valor years are multiples of 7. They're all multiples of 7, obviously, but 7, 21. So if you draw this little circular chart, you can see 7, 14, 21. 21's an N year, 7's an N year. 7 isn't officially an N year because that's when the cycle started, the snow globe shattering, but every one after that, 35, is an N year, and we're going to do that next. So you're in a constant skinny cow, but the purpose of that year or 2-year period is different. Some are to neutralize, some are to make you have question your values and why you're doing what you're doing. So by the time you get to the crown, you've already questioned. So 33 to 35. 33 to 35 is an N year. It's your 5th skinny cow. So from 7, 14, 21, 28, now you're at 35. Okay? So whatever the snow globe cracked, whatever you realized you were not part of the family, that you tried to own your Costco membership, you're not loved conditionally, your needs are not met, resurfaces at 35. This starts a little early. Remember, I told you it's always 2-year periods. 33 is a very marked year, specifically in our Western psyche, because Jesus dies at 33. 33 AD, Jesus dies. We have it programmed in our psyche that something has to die. 33 is a very symbolic number. In numerology, 11, 22, 33, numbers like that repeat are like master numbers. And Jesus dies. We know there's 33 vertebrae. There's 33 turns of the DNA. There's 33 parts altogether of the Kabbalah tree of life. There's 33 miracles in the Bible. 33 is a very symbolic number, and it's linked to our Christ consciousness. We usually do not understand this level of mysticism in our life until later. This is the opportunity in mythology where Atlas that carries the weight of the world. Think of the vertebrae. The Atlas is the top one. It carries the weight of the head. Part of what happens here that starts to be in crisis here is you realize I've carried the weight of the world. So part of the mythology here is Atlas. In the myth of Hercules, in the third labor, my third truth to spiritual adulting is the truth of breath. The pause that I call child, teenager, adult in the 7 gates. In the law of octaves, that shock that I told you that happens between mi and fa. That breath, we start to sit back and realize I've made a mess of my life. This is the pause at the body level. If you go 3 plus 3, you get 6. 6 in my model is the truth of purification. 6 has to do with the body, and 6 has to do with the sign Virgo. The symbol for Virgo is MP, materia prima. I have a land and I can build anything I want. This is the beginning. The beginning, you are nowhere near the truth. The beginning of saying, maybe this doesn't have to be my life. Maybe I can start fresh from my land, my thoughts, my beliefs, my values. And people tend to have a severe crisis between 33 and 35. Could be illness, it could be something catastrophic, but this is a very, in our Western world, very programmed because it's the attempt to have a Christ consciousness. Balance the body and the spirit. Doesn't mean we get there, but we might take a pause here. We might take a breath and say, what have I done? And it's directly related because here it is. It's the snow globe crack of what you created here. Yes.
That's where the term midlife crisis comes from.
Midlife crisis really is more related to Uranus, 42. In astrology, 84 is a full lifetime, and the midpoint is 42. Uranus is what I call the beginning of the return home. So really it's 42, but this is a precursor to what's coming. So it's a pre-midlife crisis. You may not do anything. Here you might buy something like a timeshare you can't afford, or a car you can't afford, or you have a oops baby that you can't afford. You try to not honor that your life has been a lie. You try to cover up that what you did at 28 was a really bad choice, or it castrated you to a point that you don't know how the hell you're going to get out of it. So you can break down physically and die, like not physical death, but like health issues. A lot of people have health issues at this time. Their structure actually collapses, or they can add something else on to their life to try to forget. Remember, because we're in the business of lying to ourselves. We're in the business of masking. We're in the business of veils. So let me put in another veil, have another baby, buy another car, get another mortgage, get a mistress, whatever it is. Because it's a snowball that came here of your doing that you don't want to admit that having that job and that paycheck and that wife and that kid and that mortgage met your needs. And doing it like your parents said is what's going to make you happy. So this is like the precursor to the midlife crisis. So it can show up in people's lives differently. I was just going to say something and I forgot about that. Well, if it comes to me, I'll tell you. So we have a Valor Year here, and we're looking at our values. So we have to question, what are my values? What am I doing? What is this? Oh, I know what I was going to tell you. This is linked to the myth of Atlas. In the Hercules myth of the Garden of Hesperides, Hercules had to go get 3 golden apples from the garden. And on his way there, he met Atlas. and Atlas carries the world on his shoulders. That's us. Here, you become Atlas. You carry some weight of the world on your shoulders. Here, you're really tired and you want to set it down. You don't always get the chance. And again, a lot of people have a child at that time and they say it's an oops baby, or they have a second marriage or something like that. What the attempt is at the psyche level is to hand over someone else the responsibility. In the myth, Atlas got a break. Atlas took a breath. Atlas took a pause. And he said, Hercules, hold the world for me. I'm going to go help you get the apples. So a lot of times people get partnered here, or maybe they start a business where they're like, oh, I need help. That could be another way that you live it out. It's usually in a very collapsing way, though. I can't anymore. I can't do this anymore. But again, the psyche is tricky. And then instead of having a child that comes to help you, you get a child that's more burdened. There's a saying in Spanish, el niño trajo un pan debajo el brazo. This child brought a piece of bread underneath his arm. Like if the child brought the money. The idea there, and that's in the child's psyche now, as his origins thought, is the child's going to bring me money. That's my good luck charm. Because that's what you want here. You want someone to carry the weight of the world. Maybe your mother-in-law comes and moves in with you now that you had a third kid. Someone's helping you. Damn, because it was too heavy. And this is ironic, but that's a Gemini or a Mercury myth. And Mercury, again, has to do with intellect, rational thought. Oh, I'm not supposed to have this thought. This is a bad thought. So again, another veil. And it's what you lie to yourself here that liberates you here. So if you know what you're lying about, like that woman, that she lied that she wanted to be a mother. She did not want to be a mother. And all I did was carry the weight of the world for a second and gave her some permission to own it. So what we lie about here, 33 to 35, because we carried the world here, liberates us later on in spiritual adulting. But if we keep lie, oh, the kid brought the money. Oh, the mother-in-law, I love her so much. Nonsense. You're asked for help, but you don't know how to ask for help. Because then you would admit that you made a mistake. Then you would admit that your family isn't perfect and your snow globe isn't perfect and that you can't meet everyone's needs and you don't. And we keep the vicious cycle of our parents going. So 33 and 35 is an extremely marked year. The other thing is that it's related to Mercury, that is not only rational and logical, and we know that we need curiosity and we know that we need imagination and intuition and all that, is it has to do with the breath. Mercury rules the breath, the respiratory system. If we don't breathe, we're not going to be able to make a good choice. We're not going to use our rational mind. It's the breath and slowing down to breathe that stops the thoughts so we can pause and say, oh, that's the teenager that's right here in the model on the way from child to adult. You have to pause, take a step, make a choice, free will. So earlier I said, yes, you have to own that you were a victim to whatever you inherited from your karma and your divine justice, great. But every single one of us, no matter what our circumstances, and this is really what Viktor Frankl showed us, has free will to change our circumstances, or to, at least to think of it differently. So you don't need to change the external world, you need to change your internal world, and then your external world changes as a result, which is the law of correspondence. So when you take the breath, when you ask for help, when you create a space, then you act better, and you can actually say, wow, I have free will here. I don't have to blow up my life, but I do have free will to maybe cut down my hours, or ask for help, or get a business partner, or do a refinance, whatever it is that you need at 35 to bring Atlas into your life, and Hercules is the exchange of hold the world for me a second while I figure this out. Because if I'm so busy holding the world, I can't think of how I'm going to get out of the situation. I get deeper and deeper and deeper. That's why people's body collapses. That's why it's a 6 year. That's why it's materia prima. There's nothing there. I collapse to the ground I have no choice but to build myself up. That's exactly what starts at 42. So if you do it here, this might be a little less of a blow up. So that was a really good question. So the pre-midlife crisis. What's next? 36. If you survive 33 and 35, guess what? Rahu Ketu, I told you. The future is open to you. You get your second round of the nodes, and you get your third Jupiter. Remember Jupiter, dethroned his parents. You have another glimpse as to how you're going to dethrone your parents. 36, in my opinion, is the best year ever. Ever. 48 to 52 is phenomenal, but it started at 36. That's when you determine what the one forbidden thing is, and you start to unveil it. Remember, the one forbidden thing at 18, when you go off to college, might be, oh, my mom doesn't want me to have sex, well, I'm going to sleep around. My mom doesn't want me to drink, I'm going to get drunk. My mom doesn't want me to try pot, oh, I'm going to become a pothead. Whatever. 0 to 100, silly things. At 36, now you're like, oh, wait, I have control of this. I'm an adult. I have money. I have power. I can do this. And now it's like, how do I want to do it? It's really the first aha that you really get to do it differently. Really here, you begin to dethrone them. I don't know. I 36, and 36 for me was amazing. And everyone I talked to around 36 has that similar thing. Remember, it's building on what happened at 18, and it's building on what happened at 12. So of course it's going to be related. This is the one that tracks your spiritual growth. 12, 24, 36, it's your third Jupiter, and it's your second Rahu Ketu. The future, your doors are wide open, and your spiritual growth is yours. You've decided at 12, 24, 18, and again at 36, how big of a spiritual adult you want to be. I'm a glutton and I want a big jackfruit, baby. You might want a little kiwi, that's fine. But these cycles that are oftentimes misinterpreted as abundance, and it is, it's Jupiter's abundance, and material wealth is directly linked to the balance of the spirit and the matter, which is what I told you last week with 24. So yes, you've already identified your values around money and image and religion and philosophy and spirit and sex and all those great material spiritual things. And now they start to come to your table and you start to sort. Oh, I want this, this I really want. And if we quote unquote had some consciousness and mindfulness around this, we would build them together. This is a great age to start your empire. Matter, spirit, but we don't. We don't tend to empire build until much later in life because we don't understand that we're allowed to have both. And that's the beauty of Jupiter. Got the biggest piece of the pie. Take your big fat piece of pie. Enjoy it. Enjoy your material wealth, but balance it with the spirit, which is the Venus curve. Spirit, matter, equal. That's why Jupiter and Venus are together. So the one forbidden thing resurfaces. And how are you going to live it out? Now you're in charge. It's your house. It's your money. It's your life. You don't have to answer to anyone. But you know what? You still do because mom and dad are still here. So the woman that I'm working with, today we brought this up. She's in her 5th Rahu Ketu. Her 5th. And she's still struggling with the forbidden thing. She still will not own it. This is how intense this concept of being a child is in our psyche. And this woman happens to be a religious person. So she really believes in this idea of the child of God. But then I bring you back to the image. If you are from the universe, where is the child? That's why we want to be physical adults and have children, but we don't want to be spiritual adults because then we can't be children of God anymore. It's in you. You are it. It is you, just like your mom and your dad. You are your parents. They're you, equal. And there comes an age where you become equal, where the only thing that separates you from your mother is 30 years difference. You both have a period. You're both reproductive. You both own homes. That we can accept. But for some reason, we cannot accept that we are God. God is us, in us. I'm not saying you are God. You're not the God. You are a God, like the Generativity says. It's in you. We know this from a scientific perspective, right? Energy cannot be created or destroyed. Well, if you're energy and that's energy, you're the same energy. Where do you think you get from? People have said we're stardust. People said we're the cosmos. Yeah, we are a microcosm of the macrocosm. So what is this idea of needing to be a child? That comes from never wanting to own the snow globe was cracked, which really comes from the moment of conception that you really never wanted to do this life in the first place. Shit, I got to do this again? So in mythology, there's something called the River of Forgetfulness. Souls that are about to incarnate again go through a river of forgetfulness. They forget everything about their past life so that when they're in the womb, the little river, not the river of the universe, they're small and they can accept this confined space. But we are so aware of our grandiosity. We are so aware of the magnitude of what we are, this phenomenal cosmic power, like the genie in Aladdin says, that's why we have a struggle with castration and liberty, and I want a bigger house, and I want more money, and I want a faster. And it has nothing to do with the castration or the money or the profession or how many women you have. It's all about your thoughts. Liberate your thoughts. Liberate yourself that you're a child of mommy and daddy, that you're a child of some God, and own like Lilith did. I am you, you are me, we are the same, we are equal. Stop making me subordinate to you. That's what she said to God. No, we're the same. Look me in the face. She had no veil, she had no clothes, she was naked. But there's something in our psyche that we refuse to identify, that we are just adults, spiritual adults. So I put the spiritual adult uses spouses and coworkers to grow, which has to do here. That's how you use your adulting years, which is what we're talking about, until you get to the crone and you start understanding this. It's not easy. Your parents are now dead. You may be alone, maybe you have children, maybe they live away, you're in a nursing home, your grandkids don't call it, whatever your life is, maybe they're great, maybe they're around all the time. But you're like, oh, I have to understand that I'm actually equal to this. Yeah, it's right there. You're the stars, you're the cosmos, you're the universe. A little bitty piece of it. You're not all of it. Again, hubris. The 48 to 52. But the spiritual adult owns that. The adult won't. And they will get stuck in the battle between castration and liberty and Saturn and Uranus and Saturn and Jupiter, and that's the cycle. And that's where we stay. When there's so much more. Look at that. There's Neptune, Pluto, Chiron, and Black Moon. There's a whole other adulting process. And we are not invited or even interested in doing. So this is 18 to 36. Again, this is the square. Most people live and die here. Square is death. Square is the adult. You get to old age. You never want to see anything beyond it. Good for you. You're not going to be a client. That's most people. But we're entering the age of Aquarius. And the age of Aquarius is inviting all of us to be equal. That was the pandemic. The pandemic was a force that said we're all equal. We're all at home with ourselves. Let's look at ourselves. Obviously, there's inequalities, obviously, who has access to the vaccine and all that stuff. But basically, and this fight with the mask is so interesting. Wear a mask, don't wear a mask, I don't care. I'm not politically oriented. But we're fighting about a mask. We're not fighting about the mask that we wear, that we've been given and given and given. No, it turned into a fight about a mask. Yeah, metaphorically and symbolically, the hell of that mask. That's my job. Remove the veils. But no, it became at the earthly world about a piece of cloth. It was an equalizing function. We're all equal. And the mask became the fight. You can't make this up. From a spiritual state of consciousness, it's fascinating to see this playing out. The vaccine, the COVID is Chiron, and the mask is Lilith. But we live it at the mundane level, at the Saturn Uranus. Mask is castrating. Be free and be without a mask. That's where we live. Our consciousness just goes there. We're incapable of going beyond. No one wants to be a spiritual adult. So that's where you are. That's where you stay. You do you. Yes.
One question to just clarify something in my head. So 0 to 100 parents, and then the other extreme is inevitable, and then 48 to 52 is very rare to get to, right?
It's very rare to get to unless you look at it like this. Unless you stop and realizing that the same is the opposite and the opposite is the same. I had a client yesterday. Her mother was very abusive. Her mother was horrible. She goes, her words, I've gone to an extreme to be the extreme opposite. Her words. You want to do the opposite extreme of, or the exact same if you had a great supposed intact snow globe. So if you don't recognize that the same is the opposite is the same, then you stay in those swings. And the neutralizer year 7, 21, and so forth are there to help you neutralize those. But we tend to look at it as someone else doing something to us rather than saying, ooh, spiritual family member, they came to show me something different. What happens is it's not our fault. What do? You live in a house, that's all you see. You don't know anything else. It's not your fault. TV seems different. Other friends seem different. You are living in your snow globe. Good, better, ugly. That's your snow globe. That's what you think everything looks like. The rape at 18 comes when you see, oh, shoot. And I found the guy, Derek Brown, the KKK kid that I told you. And he was in North Florida. And this guy, Elliot, someone wrote a book about that story. And we start seeing, oh, there's other cultures, there's other religions, there's other way of doing things. People do. That's why we're raped, and at 36 now we could do it like, ooh, I could do this myself. We don't know that there's another way to do it. We're programmed to honor our parents, to keep them. Saturn honored his mother. Jupiter honored his grandfather. It's a programming. Who are we? The woman yesterday says to me, you are trying to teach everything I ever learned. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty much it. It's one hell of a job I signed up for. But that's the only way. Not all of it was bad. Not all of it was bad. But what's creating chaos in our life is, and it's those swings. So the 48 to 52, it's not impossible. This is what I see. And this, I don't know if you took my moon class, but I wrote about this. If not, on my website, there's a workbook for the moon, and I talk about this. The phase of the moon that you're at. Everybody, most people, don't want a 48 to 52. So in the Kabbalion, it's talked about self-mastery, which is what I call the 48 to 52, Chiron return home, all that. You had that a few months ago. Self-mastery is the key to oneself. This. knowing that we are that and that is in us, and understanding that. The problem is, then where's the fun in life? And so the Kabbalion says there won't, and not only the Kabbalion, many masters, the middle way, the Tao, the golden mean, all the philosophers and spiritual teachers and texts, we stop having high highs and low lows. So we say we don't want this, but you love to be on Snapchat with a fake account, looking at the guy, who's he dating, what he do. We live for that drama. That's the chaos. But where did we come from? The chaos. This is Uranus. The castration of the little testicle is the thought origins at the moment of conception. And we build the square our entire life around it until we go back to the chaos and realize we owned it, we created it, and now we want to balance it. But this is where we come from, chaos. That's why we blow up our life at 42 to try to get to that inner space. But most of us really like drama and chaos. And then the people that don't love to externally live drama and chaos, what do? They live it out in their mind. Ooh, I'd really like to do her. And they have perversions, and they have things, because they're not daring to act on it and create a chaos of their life. Those are the people that you find out that were porn addicts, or have pictures in rooms, secret rooms with little kids of pedophiles. They never acted on it the way other people do. Oh, I cheated on him. Oh, I looked at his Snapchat. Oh, I checked his wallet. At least that you're living it out. At least that you're creating it in your life, the drama and the chaos and the nonsense. The people that suppress the rage, the sexual perversion, whatever that is, that they don't externalize it, internalize it. I think that's worse. Those are the people that go and blow up buildings and kill a bunch of people. So create a little bit more chaos in your life. It's probably better than the outcome afterwards. But we come from that. So the 48 to 52 is not appealing to people. I don't want to not have a high. I don't want to not have a low. I was listening to Lady Gaga the other day. Have you guys ever heard of carpool karaoke? Okay, I just learned about it. It's super cute. So Lady Gaga is on carpool karaoke, and she's singing, I'm on the edge of glory, 10,000 reasons to leave, give me one to stay. The drama, meet my needs, unconditional love, the nonsense that we're all looking for. We don't want to give up that feeling to have a 48 to 52, a stable, balanced, joyful life. I don't believe happy is in 48 to 52. I believe fleeting moments of happy live in the 0 to 100. It's not my philosophy. But balance and stability and joy, I meet my needs, you meet your needs, we're great. People don't want that. It's not necessarily programmed in our nature. It means going through all of this and then coming back. So I use the myth of Odysseus in that class, where we have to leave home, return home, and then what? Go to your moon phase. And if you haven't gone to that class, get the workbook off my website. Moon phase, and you can Google what your moon phase is, will tell you the swing. So here's the new moon and here's the full moon. Doesn't mean that if you're in the new moon, you have to be at 0, and if you're at the full moon, you have to be 100. That is not what it says. It's a range. So I was born at the waxing crescent. So if this is 48 to 52, I probably want to be between 30 and 40. So my state of balance and joy and stability is not going to be total. It's going to be a little to the left. And I told you, I have that saying, a little to the left. You might be a little to the right. You may be a little bit more introspective, a less dramatic, more calm. I'm more dramatic and a little bit more chaotic in my style and whatever. And that on a little to the left. But first you have to get to the 48 to 52. Define what that is. Know what that is for you so you could stop the swing. Then you go, well, I don't really want that much stability. Own it. I want a little chaos, a little drama. Or I want a little less chaos and a little less drama. I want to be a little bit more internal. Then you can go a little to the left or a little to the right, 48 to 52. But the process is you have to get there first. Identify what it is, the 48 to 52 between your mom and dad. That's the attempt of the nodes. The attempt of the nodes is to get you to see what that is. Because remember, it's the one forbidden thing that keeps you in the 0 to 100. They had that thought when they conceived you. You tried doing it at 14. They said no. At 18, you're like, oh my God, that's the thing. 0, 100, 18, 48 to 52. But you're young, you do it wrong. You smoke too much. You have too much sex. You drink too much. You fail out of class, whatever that is. That's the reason for the rape. That's why we keep going back to the one forbidden thing, and we're going to do that 72 and then 80, whatever. At 72, you better have some idea, because it's probably your last lunar nodes, unless you live longer. But again, astrologically, we die at 84. Everything extra beyond 84. It doesn't mean you can't continue doing the work, but I only speak to 84. That's why 42 is the midpoint and the true midlife crisis. Yes.
So even though 0 to 100 is bound to happen, it's all about awareness.
The first step is awareness. Yes, remember the Band-Aid, awareness, then integration. You are your mom, you are your dad, integrate that. D is do it different. You're not going to do it different till you get here, most likely. So when I tell you Odysseus leaves home for 10 years and then he comes back home for 10 years and he's like, oh, the marital bed can't be separated from the olive branch. That's the I'm my mother, I'm my father. That's the integration. That's now owning, not from the head. I had a client yesterday. Oh, yeah, I know, I'm exactly like my mom. Yeah, in your head, here. You have owned it in your heart that you are your mom and your dad. I know I am my mother now. Now I'm doing it differently. I have dethroned her. I went back home. I said, thank you, Mom. You were the greatest mom I needed for my spirit. I didn't understand the earthly. I mourned the mom that I needed. Fine. But I realized that what she gave me, I am exactly like her. How am I doing it different? My mother's worst bucket item, which was my worst bucket item, why I had bulimia, why I got sick, everything, was image. I had a problem here. More with the Venus than the Jupiter. I had no problem with the Jupiter. Spiritual growth, material wealth, I have no problem with that. But I always had a problem with Venus, the image. So I castrated and hurt myself at the image bucket. So if you go to your bad bucket and you identify what it is you don't want to integrate about mom or dad, that's probably the one you're 0 to 100ing the most. So now I'm at the do it different. I'm at the D. I was at integration during my depression, my cancer, all that. I was seeing that I was her seeing it. Now I've dethroned her, I can do it different. I'm building a new brand, a new website, I'm writing these books. And I said to her, I said, you're all about image. My mom's all very crafty and pretty and elegant and graceful. So I add pink, or I add a swirl, or I add a cursive. I have to bring her in. She's still on the not on the throne, but side by side of the throne. In order for me to stay on my kingdom and not give sacrifices that are way too expensive, like my breasts, I have to invite her in. My dad doesn't pose a problem because I have the same power currency as my dad. Remember, the parent that was the wrong alliance, and you had the same power currency, doesn't bother too much. There might be some things. I'm trying to not yell. I'm trying to not be so abrasive because my dad's like that. So I have to honor that I still have to work on some things, but really it's my mom. The bucket that bothered me was my mother. My 0 to 100 nonsense throughout my life was my mom. By doing it differently, I integrate her by adding pink and swirls and cursive or whatever nonsense. I get my nails done. I give her offerings because she does matter. She's in my psyche. But in order for me to stay on my throne, I understand that she's my God out here. And I give God his and her place. appropriate. That's a spiritual adult. You're not waiting for mom and dad to rescue anymore. You don't go into fight or flight waiting and create a nonsense for them to come and save you and do it different. You understand that Costco isn't your store, but you really like Nordstrom's. You forgive them or not, that's on you. You have a relationship or not, that's on you. I don't care, that's earthly realm. But in the spiritual realm, you understand that you chose that vibration so that you could grow. You understand why you created the life that you did, you mourned it, and you give an offering. Every time you cut them a piece of cake, whatever your story is. That was from my cult. We would have to give the spirit a piece of cake. So that's what I'm saying. I'm going to give them a piece of cake. Nails, a little pink on my logo. Doesn't cause suffering and problems. I give the universe, like Jesus said, give God's what is God's. I give God the nail polish and the pink. That's what she wants. And I give Caesar's what is Caesar's. The earthly realm. You gotta give both. So you take care of your body, you take care of your mind, you take care of your spirit and your psyche, and you're in a 48 to 52. That's too peaceful for you? You want a little drama? You like it a little dramatic? Go a little to the left. No problem. But you're doing it consciously. That's raising consciousness. That's transmutation of thought. From the moment of conception, that's how you transmute thought. It no longer creates an issue because you own it. That you're them, that they're you, you're the myrtle bed, you're the olive branch, blah, 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 blah. Now when you dethrone them, it doesn't cause so much of a problem. If you're still having offerings and sacrifices and fighting, you're just in the do it different stage. I'm still there. I'm not fully Zen, Om, I float. No. I still be like, oh, there. But you become so conscious of it that you get it quick. You're like, oh, that's what that is. And you don't have to have these huge swings or blow up your life or have these big destructive arguments with people. You catch it, you're aware of your thought, you integrate it, you do it different. You give your offering, you move on. Next, the thoughts don't ever stop. So the more you become a spiritual adult, maybe this is the bad part, the more subtle the situations show up. Even more and more and more mindful. So you decide if that's what you want. Whereas if you stay as just an ordinary adult, an earthly adult, a body adult, then there are bigger swings, there are bigger dramas, there are bigger court cases. And I'd rather have my small little subtle things that are just nudges than these big nonsensical things I used to create to call myself an adult. Because that's the thing. We're not adults, none of us. We're adults playing adults. We're children in adult bodies. So I have to pretend to care about the environment, about social justice, about my children, about the PTA, about my bank account. I don't really care because I'm a child. So let me pretend to be an adult and do a. And we beat ourselves up for doing adult things, hence the blowing up at 42, all from here. So I want to be an adult, and I'm going to have the privileges of being an earthly adult, but I also want the gifts of being a spiritual adult. And the universe cannot trust you with your soul's gifts, with your spiritual adult gifts if you're a child. It can't, because you're going to mess it up. So if you want the level of growth and spirituality, and whatever the spirit gifts are that your soul came, you gotta be a spiritual adult. You can't be a child. Is your mother at 3 years old gonna trust you with the bank account and the checkbook? Why would the universe? Absolute nonsense. We stay in the physical adult body realm in this generativity and we generate, or we stay stagnant because that's the 0 to 100. And then we call it life being so hard. Yes, life is hard, granted, it comes with pain. We add the suffering. All to pretend that we're adults. We're not. If we were adults, we would meet our own needs, and we would stop creating nonsense for others to meet our needs for us. If I'm wet and cold, I change my clothes, and I get an umbrella, and I get a sweatshirt. I don't ask you to go to my room to go get it for me. I'm not saying there isn't some room at 48 to 52. Oh, honey, can you make me a cup of tea? I'm sick. Of course. But we want everything done for us all the time, the red carpet treatment. But yet, Spirit, trust me and give me an empire to run. Can't have it both ways. So when you're spiritually adult, you get it all. Whatever that means at the earthly realm. I'm not fantasizing that we have it all at all time. No. Whatever that means for you, for your soul, for your karma. But we want to stay in that 0 to 100 because it gives us life. It makes us feel alive and dramatic. Lady Gaga, the edge of glory, 10,000 reasons to stay. In my model, someone gives you 10,000 reasons to go. That's one hell of a thread and a hell of a non-negotiable and a hell of a snow globe that got shattered. What are you still doing there, nonsense? But one reason to stay, because we're looking for the Savior, we're looking for meeting our needs, and we're looking for the knight in shining armor and the Prince Charming. Ridiculous. Ridiculous. That is you. You save you. You're your adult. Take care of you. Meet your needs. Pay your bills. Do you boo. That's what do you boo means. Do you boo doesn't mean, oh, you over there, me over here. That's another trick to try to do. I want to do whatever I want, to liberate this castration that you got yourself in. And follow your bliss. Poor Joseph Campbell, he must be turning in his grave, if I even believed in that. How about forget about your boyfriend and meet me at the hotel room? I love that song. At least he's honest, though. At least he's honest. The other song with Ricky Martin or Enrique Iglesias, your boyfriend's out of town, he doesn't have to know. We're doing it anyway. The thing is that the minute you have the thought, it already materialized, because thought is energy. It already becomes what you hold yourself hostage to. Just the thought of wanting to cheat on someone else. Just the thought of meeting at the hotel room because your boyfriend's out of town. At least be honest. And when you meet the person, when you're creating the thread and the snow globe and the non-negotiables, look, I don't have a problem with infidelity. You do you, boo. I'll do me. I won't look through your phone. You don't look through mine. Oh, no, we can't have that clarity. Oh, no, that would be too Lilith. That would be too removal of the veil. That would be too honest. We like to manipulate and passive aggressive. I had a client the other day, since that young girl. I said, so why'd you create it? To me, because obviously I forced the honesty to be with him. She created, cheated, and took a trip to another country with the girl. She signed in a Snapchat as a different name and saw the video. Nonsense. Granted, she's a young girl. It's appropriate. She's 24. She's at that age. But then, what didn't you like about it? Oh, he lied. Are you a liar? Yes. He cheated. Are you a cheat? Because the session right before that, she was thinking about cheating on her boyfriend. She didn't do it, but she had the thought. You are guilty once you have the thought. He manipulates. Are you a manipulator? Yes. Problem solved. Drama ended. No one likes that. It's too simple. Well, then what? What's it put? So own it. Be mindful that you created it, that you like the drama. And to the world, be the victim. I don't care. To the world, call your mother, call your friends, call the guy a jerk. Great. But to yourself, be honest at least. Attempt to get to spiritual adulting, at least in secret. And go, wow, I created this. Look how I orchestrated. Man, I'm amazing. I'm a director of Netflix, better than Steven Spielberg. And own it. No one has to know. But start with the honesty with self. Blow up your life, have the boyfriend cheat, get the to go to the hotel room. I don't care. But just get honest with yourself. Start there. But we do the other way around. We lie to ourselves so much. And then we create the whole world and we believe the lie we created. We believe that we were cheated. We believe that we were this. We believe we were stolen. Look, I ain't calling the kettle black. I am the freaking kettle. Look at the nonsense of my life I did for 48 years. I mean, people, I know this because I lived it. But then I said, no more. That wasn't working for me. Let me try it at least the other way. And that's working. If it's working for you, keep doing it. But I have yet to see one client come to me saying, my life is great, it's working. And your clients are coming to you not because it's great. And I told you last week, you're probably not going to get people at 18, 36, and so forth. They're pretty good around Jupiter cycles, Rahu Ketu cycles. Those aren't times people go to therapy usually. It's the skinny cows, the neutralizer years, the Valor years, 33 to 35, 42. It's when they've blown up their life or made such a hot life that they don't even know where to start to pick up the pieces. So if your life is so great and all this nonsense is working for you, and you don't need me, great. Great. I don't want to see you either. Go home. But you're not knocking on my door or on your door because things are working for you. Doubt that. So at least call it what it is. Call yourself on it. I started this thing with clients lately where I tell them to create a WhatsApp chat with me and just talk their thoughts. I had this thought, I didn't like it. It's mother, father. I create it because of this reason. This is what the mirror, the first 3 steps of the model. They're calling and leaving messages and messages and messages. And what I like about the WhatsApp idea, and obviously I have these very long-term relationships with these clients. I wouldn't just invite anyone to bombard my phone like that. And it's not even for me, it's for them. It's like that they feel that they have a repository of where their thought can go and they can listen back. When they listen back, they're like, oh my God, I spend so much of my day obsessing about my thoughts and hating myself. No wonder I get nothing done. So if you're constantly in the thought, in child, you get nothing done. You can't build an empire, much less a spiritual empire. And that's been really helpful for clients. They're like, wow, this is really good. I've put a boundary of a week because then next session, we do the adult. But that 1 week, I say, create a WhatsApp, just bombard the thoughts. And when they say it's mother, father, but this is what I don't like about it, and this is why I created it, they start realizing. So that's something that I've been doing with clients lately, to move them now into adult once they can hear themselves and how much time and how much energy they spend on trying to pretend that the world is doing wrong by them. And so if we get honest with that, then we can build the adult. At least that you could be an adult, like a person adult. Forget spiritual adult, right? And make adult choices. That's it. Forget spiritual adult. You don't want to become a spiritual adult? No problem. But at least be an adult so you don't hold yourself hostage. Your kids don't suffer. Your money doesn't suffer. Your health doesn't suffer. So let's at least grow your inner child up to the adult state. Then we'll work on becoming a spiritual adult if you can. So I've been doing that with clients so that they could really get clear with, wow, I spent so much time in the child and my thought creating this nonsense. So this is adolescent psychology, and the point was to show you how those formative years of teens set up the infrastructure for everything else that you'll become. I'll just sort of finish it out. Thursday we'll do 42. 42 now begins the journey to the spiritual adult, and I'll give you kind of the pointers. And then next month we're doing 6. So we're going to really focus a lot on Pluto, which is the spiritual adult. But we have to talk about the low vibration Pluto, why we create crisis and things in our life in order to inform the spiritual adulting process. but we'll probably stop this class at 42, and then you can obviously repeat the cycles because you have all the years. And I have the tracking worksheet and stuff like that. Any questions before we go? Is this making sense? Does this help you with your life? Does this help you understand that you can work with a population of a certain age and really target the type of question you're going to ask? Because now I'm like, when someone says something to me, I'm like, okay, what happened at this age? Because it's a ladder, it's connected. And if you could put the pieces and the threads together, then you can see obviously what's coming next and how to help them. So it starts to guide the question that you can ask, depending on the population you're with. If it's children, if it's teens, if it's adults, if it's seniors, now you're really given an entire sort of framework of that. Any questions before we go? Let me stop the recording and take attendance.